Hello and welcome back, everybody. Welcome back, Duke. How you going?
Doing good.
Excellent. So we just left off. We got a fresh slate to start talking from, and I guess I got a few different things I could ask about to kick us off,
Sure.
and I want to ask about your avatar that you use on Twitch. Where the heck did that come from? What is it?
Oh, it comes from a Michael Winterbauer painting that was used as the cover art for the game Solstice.
Oh, okay. Solstice. I am not familiar with Solstice at all. Is it a good game? That's why it's your avatar. You just love the game.
I don't think it's a particularly good game. It has excellent title music, but it's a isometric Night Lore type.
Okay. What year was the Solstice from?
It's got to be the late 80s, I guess, right?
Okay.
Maybe 1990. Let me find a link to the image.
I'm just trying to find that image so I could get the context around the avatar. You found it? There we go. Excellent. Oh wow. Wow, that is actually something special right there. Solstice, the quest for the staff of Demnos.
The wizard in the game is not nearly as cool.
That's a cool wizard. That's a very cool wizard.
Let me see if I can find. Let me see if how did I sign out of this? Shouldn't have done.
Fighter Mage dual class, yes. The artist likes to retweet that image frequently, I think. He's very proud of it. I mean, he should be proud of the image.
It's an excellent
Retro.
image.
Sorry?
It's an excellent image. He should be proud of it. It's an excellent image.
Absolutely.
So what's cool is, well, let me link this properly. This.
Oh, I have to sign in to see this image?
I guess so. I don't know how Blue Sky works.
I don't remember my Blue Sky credentials.
Mike, are you not using a password manager?
I am actually, but I'm not using it on this browser. Let me try and open this.
I guess I can. Hold on. I can just DM it to you in Discord.
Here you go. I got it on a different browser.
Okay.
This is ultra reminiscent of that original image.
It's an advertisement for the same game.
Oh, it's an advertisement?
Yeah.
Have they just gotten a bodybuilder and glued a beard and wig to him?
It's so good.
That is a great image. Oh, look at I didn't notice the shining boots the first time around.
It's so good.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. That's something different right there, for sure.
There's a second page, on the other side. It's like, do you dare challenge the game master or something?
Mm-hmm.
But that's the... I love, every piece of advertising for Solstice is cooler than the game itself.
That's sad. I mean, it has so much. The game has so much to live up to with this kind of advertising. Yeah,
it does. The problem is that the game is you play this square little wizard dude, and you do isometric jumping puzzles.
Isometric jumping puzzles. I mean, they're generally not that great, but I mean, I'm willing to try it.
It's a whole genre, right? The Night Lore type game.
Yeah.
Where it's just all of them play like a game you'd be excited to get on your Zeddy in 1982 in poverty-stricken Britain.
I've just realized how much I've neglected my Blue Sky account. I have all these follows. I think I have to follow back some people.
Perhaps. Perhaps.
I haven't logged into this Blue Sky account like basically since I created it, I think.
I spun one up. I switched off Twitter a while back because like it got out of hand with the douchebag on there.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm just gonna use Mastodon mostly for like shit posting, magazine clippings and stuff.
Yeah.
And like when I start stream. And then Zophar was going over to Blue Sky, and I was like, yeah, you know, it seems like there's a pretty good collection of retro folks on there. I might as well spin it up there. And so
I spun up a Mastodon on like one of the game dev, I forget which one, things, and then I got the Blue Sky one, set it up, and I was like, oh, that'll do. And then I just ended up defaulting back to using Twitter because it's in my pocket, and the way I use Twitter, I don't see a lot of the garbage. So it just I don't know.
The when I was looking at it, I ended up going with Mastodon.social because that's it's the creator's home instance, and it's run by a nonprofit in Germany,
right?
Which means that like GDPR or whatever it is in effect for it. And because it's run by a nonprofit with paid moderation, it means that a lot of the hazard of Mastodon's infrastructure is mostly avoided or mitigated.
Yeah. Oh, that's fair. I mean, that's pretty good approach to take. I'll be taking a look at the socials again a bit more and making sure I'm like checking my alerts at least, my notifications at the very least. I got to jump on and do that.
It's what I really do with it right now, because it sucks because like I really want to find a solution to this. We'll talk about this in a minute, but I've haven't been doing the magazine redeems on stream recently because like one of the problems was that I was working through like 4 or 5 different magazines starting in like 82, 83. And some of the magazines fell off, and the ones that didn't just ballooned into this enormous size. So they were taking such a long time to do.
Yeah, they go from like a 30-page magazine to something like 80 or so.
300 pages.
What?
Like
that is ballooned.
They're giant, these giant things, and they're just like a lot of the time they're repeating the same content issue to issue.
Yeah.
That's just like arranged differently.
Right.
And it's like, oh, here's the maps for this game. Here's a review of this game. And it's like literally just the same screenshots laid out a little differently. And I think digital publication had a lot to do with that they could get a lot of mileage out of the same assets, and taking pictures was now more expensive time-wise than like doing a bunch of fonts and whatever. But because I've slowed down on that, it's just it's a rare occasion that I'll post like some magazine clipping or something, and then what I do is when I start a stream, I'll just go and post that, and then I'll close off those 2 tabs, and that's all I do. But that does give me an opportunity to see like, hey, here's these notifications, and I can be like, yeah, okay, this thing, follow, whatever I have to do. And that helps, right? Because I'm not reading it a lot, but I am seeing the notifications, so it cuts the time down.
Yeah.
Because I'm on there, I'm seeing it regularly, but I'm not like using it a lot.
That's helpful.
But yeah, I wanted to do something where like I'd like to put together like a database of individual magazines and like what series they belong to, what year they're from, and how many pages they are at a minimum.
Right.
So that I can then go like, okay, somebody wants to look at a magazine, let's do a little magazine break, and we're going to read 25 pages from this magazine, and then read those pages, and it automatically tracks like where that magazine will have left off.
Oh wow,
hey,
yeah.
It's Hesh. Hello, Hesh.
Oh, hello, Hesh. Welcome in. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I would like to use a tool like that.
Yeah. The other thing, like, again, like making the scope way too big. An ideal solution would be like, hey, here's every game mentioned in this magazine,
Mm-hmm.
and here's the page that it's mentioned on.
Mm-hmm.
And then linking that to a game database of all
Mm-hmm.
the information about every game. So you
We've
can be like,
talked about our dreams of this kind of like
I know it's
meta data driven, like just absolutely awesome data collection and image resources, and we've talked about this.
At
offline.
the very least, I want to replace Moby Games, because holy hell, have you seen what they're doing lately?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Downsampling, like compressing images, and yeah, that's
Get
gonna be
Moby
fun.
Pro to see the full size screenshot.
Yeah. It's funny, like they keep on doing this with data driven stuff. Like they used to put their Moby Games watermark on the cover art that people had scanned in. And it's like,
Yep.
You shouldn't be doing that. You don't, like, somebody uploaded it. It's not like it's yours. Like, what are you doing?
Well, it is, because have you seen their license agreements?
Oh yeah,
and
sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
use agreements in terms of service.
Yeah,
You
fair.
give that stuff to them, they own it. And so they can put it behind a paywall.
Yeah.
And I think it's a super, super scummy thing that Atari's corpse is doing, where they're like, hey, we're taking all of this stuff that volunteers gave us and putting it behind a paywall because they want to make money, I guess.
Yeah, it's like they're puppeteering the corpse of Atari, like Bernie. It's just like
yeah. That's why, like, when people say, like, oh, Atari is doing blah, 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 I say, Atari's corpse.
Yes. Like, Atari's changed hands that many times now, it's kind of ridiculous. Like,
it's like a skeleton.
Yeah. Sadly, I guess. Yeah. I mean, it would, like, the dream of, like...
Although, let's be fair, other than their initial innovation, was Atari ever good?
The Atari arcade stuff is, for the most part, amazing and awesome. The 2600 was something special. They kind of killed it. And they didn't really innovate beyond that, right? Like, it would have been nice to see them... It would have been nice to see them go, like, you know what? Super Atari. Like, here's a thing that's like, it's like a 16-bit machine.
Wait. I've got a Super Atari. Hold on.
You've got a Super Atari? Is that a thing? Look, the real thing was, like, to me, was the
Here it is.
What is
Here it is, the Super Atari.
Oh yeah, the 70 whatever, 78. Is it 7600, 7800?
7800.
7800.
26, 52, 78.
Yeah. Whatever. Like, I mean, look, I know they eventually got the Jaguar out, and the Jaguar, like, should have been competitive, but it really wasn't. The Atari Lynx was an amazing machine. That genuinely was an amazing machine. And it's sad that it was, like, this handheld device that nobody wanted because it was too heavy and needed too many batteries.
Have you seen why I have a theory why the Lynx failed. And it's 3 images.
Okay, I'm ready.
3 images why the Lynx failed. It'll be kind of tough to get those exact 3 images, but hold on.
All right.
I think I saw this recently enough that I can pull it up pretty quick.
Okay.
This is like one of the few superpowers that I have is like off the cuff research of like where I saw something and how to get a picture of it quickly. So we need what, like 146?
Yeah, it's like one of those things like this. The Lynx, by all accounts, it should have been like a very well-loved system. It's very good. It has a lot of very good ports on it as well. Like, yeah, it's just sad. It's sad.
This one. Yes, here we go. I got one of them.
I'm ready.
It's low resolution.
We're all ready.
I'm gonna send this to you on Discord.
Oh, a Discord link this time. Special.
Well,
we got a full image.
It's a it's a screenshot of a magazine scan that I happen to have locally.
Okay. Now, to be fair, this looks like they took a photograph of the Lynx screen badly. Which...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And here's the problem. That's a press kit screenshot from Atari.
That's sad. That does explain a fair bit about why people weren't excited about the system.
There were 3 of these. There were 3 of these screenshots. One was whatever game that is, Blue Lightning or something.
Mm-hmm.
I think one was from Electro Cop. I forget what the third one was. There were 3 screenshots that made the rounds in every magazine.
Yeah.
They all looked like absolute trash.
This undersells what the system can do so much. It's crazy.
But like the thing about the Atari Lynx, though, is the screen looked like crap. It absolutely did. This is an accurate portrayal of the screen.
I've got one. It looks better than this.
Do you have one of the later models? Because they changed the screen stuff.
I always forget which model, which shape was first, the flatter one or the rounder one.
I think the bigger one.
The big fat round one, because that's the one I've got.
I think. Here,
It has all the problems of an early LCD screen where like the viewing angle you have to be basically straight on to get a good view of it. But when you're holding it in the right spot, the color reproduction's very nice, it has good refresh rates, it's very good.
If you're in ideal lighting conditions, in the like 5 degrees of viewing angle.
That's generous. 5 degrees is generous, yeah.
That's what I'm saying is like this screenshot is this photograph is an accurate depiction of what the Lynx usually looked like, right?
I am seeing compression artifacts on top of everything else here, though.
Yeah. This is a bad scan of it. But the thing was, right, that even though this was a relative, like when you see the full scan, like when you see the full resolution version of it, like without scan problems, whatever, it's not the worst. But it does show a problem of the color LCD screens, and everybody knew that color LCD screens at that time had these problems.
Yeah.
The problem was that they were showing off the problems in their press kit screenshots.
Yeah. I mean, there's a number of ways they could have maybe tackled that problem, but like the platform itself is very powerful. I feel like the color reproduction on that screen, like it has very good color gamut on that little screen for what it is, and like with the limited number of colors it needs to show, it does a fairly good job of maintaining that contrast and color and brightness. The backlight's very good. There's a lot of reasons why you can enjoy that system. I feel like it's undersold. What they probably should have done is put a nice little AV output and just like they probably shouldn't have made a Lynx. They should have probably made a console, just connect this to your TV type console with those features would have been competitive. But they made it handheld instead, which should have been more competitive when you think about it. But
here's the thing, right? I think if they released this console at this time, they would have gotten buried. They would have just gotten absolutely destroyed by Sega. Right? Because the Genesis was out already, or was right around the corner.
Yeah.
When is this?
It's a good question.
This is September 89. The Genesis was, I think, already out a month when they announced the Lynx.
Was the Genesis at 89 as well?
Yeah. In North America, at least.
Wow. That's earlier than I thought. Okay.
But like it's weird because there's this big gap between like the Genesis release and Sonic the Hedgehog that people kind of forget exists to a certain extent, because it was like It was like Golden Axe, Altered Beast,
Yeah.
some dipshit football game that wasn't Madden, um, a really bad soccer game. I have like half of the library and a bunch of EA stuff, right? Like Budokan and whatever else. And like,
oh, when EA was still prepared to pay for the cartridge licensing.
I think it was like EA never wanted to pay the cartridge.
Oh, okay.
licensing,
So that was still, so they were early getting their fake carts into the market then.
But the thing is that like Sega was offering arcade games at home, and they were very good reproductions of Sega's arcade games.
Yeah, sure.
And there wasn't a lot that could compete with that. And then like the TurboGrafx was out a month later. And so against that competition, the Lynx as a console would have tanked.
Yeah.
There's no way it could have stayed above water. Now, it could have done well against the Game Boy with like 3 major things. One, an entirely different marketing staff who knew how to take pictures.
Yes, that would help. Right? I mean, a better screen would be nice, but you couldn't really ask for a better screen at the time, I don't think.
Fake it.
Yeah.
Send them fakes. Be like, here's what the games look like.
Yeah.
Not actual screen star.
Yeah.
Right? And show off the games. Show that the games look really good. Right? They look better than NES games.
Good frame rates. Yeah, looking way better than way better.
so show that off, right? That's number one. Number two, sell it at a loss. You have to undercut the Game Boy. Right? Undercut the Game Boy by $5 for like 6 months.
There's something that this system could never do that the Game Boy could do. Fit in your pocket.
Right. But that's like the third thing though is they needed better developer relations. They didn't have anybody who was selling something that people wanted to buy.
That would have been a huge thing. I think the developer relations is like probably number 1 or number 2 on that list, because like in terms of priority, because the system was
in terms of priority, yeah, but in terms of feasibility, right? Like the first 2 things they can do, right? The third thing, like this was already after the 7800. They're like Atari had a really steep hill to climb back up.
Yeah.
After that, right? Yeah. Like they really did a lot of stuff wrong with the 7800 and with like man, like the 7800 coming out so deep into the NES lifespan, the early prototype, not prototype, but like the early like semi-launch, where like preview launch thing.
I think all of the like anything from what 2600 was a hit. Everything after that they did was not really a hit. Like, and that's pretty clear. Like the market agreed. It seems.
I think the problem with the 2600 was like they got the 2600 out and they were still putting out games for the 2600 in 1982. No, like they needed to keep innovating. They needed to keep building the next thing.
Yeah.
And the next thing and the next thing. And they didn't, right?
That was kind of hard for them to know they needed to do that at the time. Like,
well,
they're a little arrogant. They thought they were dominating.
Right.
They weren't.
It was hard for them to know that.
Yeah.
They should have known better.
Right? Yeah, they could have done better. But like coming back to the Lynx and like the power of that system, its architecture is very good. Like good developer relations could have brought really good titles to that platform that took advantage of the hardware in ways that nothing really ever did commercially. I don't know how many games really ever really pushed that system.
I don't like. There's some really interesting stuff on the Lynx, but I think like Gauntlet 3 is probably the most advanced that I know of, where it's just like they're doing scaling and they're doing tons of sprites and they're doing tons of pathfinding AI and stuff like that,
Yeah.
right? But the thing to me, like, okay, I want your opinion on this. I want to know what you think about this, Mike.
All right. I may have no opinion, but we'll see.
It's more of a console thing, so it might not, I don't know, it might not be your wheelhouse as much, but
yeah.
I have this thought about consoles specifically, but it also applies to like PCs, which is, I don't know which way this goes, but successful systems have more RPGs.
Okay.
I don't know if that's because the system is successful. People are willing to invest more in developing longer term software over a greater period of time, or whether the investment of people to develop that software draws more consumers to the system.
You've really thrown something new at me here. Like, it's totally, I did not anticipate this line of thinking. More successful systems have more RPGs, and now you're asking also if this observation is true. Is it true because of correlation, or is it causation? Like, more RPGs equals a better system?
It's more a case of like, do you think it's more likely that the RPGs are on the system because it's successful? Or do you think the system is more successful because it has RPGs?
I think the longevity of a system's viability in the market determines whether or not somebody's going to spend time to develop an RPG for it, but everybody will always want to develop an RPG for any gaming system. It's just, will that system be around long enough and have a market enough to support the production cost of an RPG? That's my initial thoughts, like, without any really thinking about it. Now, this is the kind of thing where we need a better Moby Games, because you could then query Moby Games and say, RPGs, consoles, give me that list assorted, and also tell me like what the market value or the market share of each of those consoles is, and then be like, okay, greater market share equals a greater RPG count. I don't know.
It's one of those interesting things that, like, I don't think the Genesis or Mega Drive was particularly unsuccessful, but it has such a lower number of RPGs for the size of its library compared to the Super Nintendo. And the Super
Which is
Nintendo
contemporary, right?
What's that?
That's contemporary systems?
Yeah. Well, the Super Nintendo was a little bit later, but the Super Nintendo has just this, it's lousy with RPGs, right?
Yeah.
And the Genesis Mega Drive has like only kind of a handful of standout titles. Now, library size, the Super Nintendo has a much larger library, but I think percentage wise, there's fewer RPGs on the Genesis, right? So it's interesting to me that like that I think that the Genesis has fewer RPGs per market share and the Super Nintendo has more, but the Super Nintendo also has more market share. So the total, I mean, it does have lousy RPGs. It's true. It's got some real stinkers.
Yeah.
But it also had some excellent stuff. But it's interesting too, because I think, if I recall correctly, Phantasy Star 2 and Final Fantasy 2 were both like relatively within launch windows.
Yeah, I think I'm still trying to get my head around like some of these concepts, because like I do feel like market share growth on a console means somebody is willing to spend the time and like, because building a big RPG, like most RPGs are kind of big. You want to know that there's a market there to support your development costs. So it makes sense to build first for that platform at the least, and then maybe port if you've got a successful title. Right?
What's also interesting to me is, as far as I know, there aren't a lot of RPG ports that originate on any one specific console. The games that got ported to multiple consoles ended up starting on Japanese PCs.
Really?
Yep. So like East, Hajime Fuin, Seal of the Dark Lord, also known as Miracle Warriors. But there's not a lot. Last Armageddon. The Last Armageddon only got one console port, I want to say. But it's interesting, right? And it's interesting too because like the
I'm wondering about this. You're obviously deep in thought here, so yeah.
Yeah, it's a conundrum, right? Because it's like, I don't think there is an answer, right?
Yeah.
I don't think there is a clear answer to it. I don't think any amount of research will actually like show this kind of stuff. But what's interesting to me,
there should be documents in like some game dev companies, like archives. They're like, they did market research. They approached Nintendo, they approached Sega, and they were like, we decided to go with Nintendo because of the market share. There's probably a document there, right?
You know what's interesting? You know what is documented is that Squaresoft's localization producer for North America believed that the market share of RPG players within the North American audience was relatively smaller than in other markets, specifically the Japanese market.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really interesting question, actually. You could probably dig really deep on this. Is it like one of those like data science, like, give us the data, please, somebody, and so we can dig into it and like start to ask these questions like more broadly and like have data that backs it up?
I think part of it too is that one of the things that interests me about this is there is some data we see in like Nintendo Power surveys in the NES era, where they would show the amount of points that different types of the different games got for their top 30 list.
Okay.
Between players, pros, and dealers. We know that the players' point information came from responses to their survey cards. Which they would pack in with the magazine. So it was Nintendo Power subscribers.
Right.
And we believe that the pros consisted of both like sponsored professional gamers outside of Nintendo, such as the US video game team.
I find that the concept of the US video game team,
it's so
in 80 something, like just a weird concept.
It's so funny. Especially when they went on to do deals like giving their approval to Camerica games and stuff like that. These like awful multi-game packs and like Linus Spacehead.
Oh my gosh.
And then the dealers, speculation is that the dealers was a back channel like retailer and distributor feedback form that Nintendo sent out and got back from them. And so what's interesting to see is that with the player number specifically, and we know who that what market segment that represents.
Sure.
RPGs typically saw a slow uptake over 1 or 2 issues of increasing, and then they would stay highly rated for a long period of time.
Okay.
With dealers, RPGs would be rated high for like 1 month and then drop out of the top 10.
Okay.
Because again, if we speculate about this, right?
I'm prepared to speculate a little, yeah.
If you think about what dealers want Bart versus the Space Mutants and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Right.
And games that people are going to get sick of after a month and come back to buy another game.
And broad appeal so that they know, like, Grandma walks in and sees Bart Simpson. I grabbed that one.
It's going to sell a lot of copies.
Yeah.
Yep. Mommy, give me Bart.
Yep. the two sides of the discerning consumer.
Right. But it's interesting because the people who are avid Nintendo Power readers enough to fill out the surveys were like, hell yeah, Final Fantasy. Right? And then also for 1 month, hell yeah, Bart. And then they played it.
Yeah. We get that these days too with some of the titles that launch on like Steam and seem to like skyrocket in popularity. They stay there for a little while and then they just disappear. But when something that's like a bigger RPG type title, I think they do tend to stay on the chart a little longer, especially if they're well received. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that is true.
It's an interesting I look at it from the perspective of the stream business, right? And I'm like, what is the RPG of streaming? How do I get that returning? How do I get that returning customer?
Right.
For like a long period of time.
Yeah.
Right. How do I build up that kind of long-term, like consistent support? What is it content that people want to come back to?
People want to see you reacting to stuff. Yeah. React thumbnail. I mean, honestly though, like I think reaction content and like commentary content is genuinely interesting for a lot of people, and they'll come back for more.
Yeah.
Like
I think one of the things I did recently that was really, really successful, and I want to do more of this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Is I did a project. When was this? Like September?
That's not too long ago. September.
The months all kind of bleed together now.
Yeah, me too.
So I was talking to Bovine Divine, and he was mentioning that like, hey, he said something kind of off the cuff that I picked up on that I thought was very interesting. And he was like, I always say, like, I would always say as a kid, Streets of Rage 2, because I was the Genesis kid, so I was always like, Streets of Rage 2 is the best beat 'em up. He's like, but then when I got home, I would always play Final Fight, and I was like, that's kind of interesting, right? It's an interesting thing because like I'm not the biggest fan of Streets of Rage 2. I think it's a really good game. It's really well put together. And some of the stuff like some of the stuff in it just irks me particularly because it's like, oh, this boss, you have to use this move,
right?
Or they like always react to you and you can't do anything about it. It's like, well,
speaking of reaction content,
I don't want to know. I don't want to have to learn a password for each boss, right?
Yeah. That's a good clip there, yeah. Thank you.
Excellent. So I asked him, I was like, that's an interesting like statement, an interesting case where you're in a position to say like, hey, yeah, like I think this game is the best, but I'm going to play this instead. right? And it also led to this greater discussion of like, does the Genesis or the Super Nintendo have better beat 'em ups? And so
if you zoom out from this discussion a little bit, like a lot maybe, it's like most popular game in the world right now is probably not a really good RPG. It's probably some match 3 thing on your phone that has just the right tweaks to it to make you spend all your money on it. Like, you know, like it's probably more players on that.
So I did this, and this is more in the direction of like, what content did people seem to like? And I have 2 takeaways from this. So after we were like discussing it, I was like, you know what? Like, why don't I just play all of the beat 'em ups on these 2 systems and figure it out? And so I went into a lot of detail, and I did over the course of, I think it was 4 streams.
Right.
Um,
you were researching them, or you were actually playing through them?
Not playing all the way through, playing like 20 minutes or so
Okay.
of each one. Enough to get past like the first level, see all the different modes if they had it, if they were easily accessible.
Specifically ones on the systems, not like just broad.
On the Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo.
Right, yeah.
And defining beat 'em ups as primarily belt scrolling games that have a mostly melee combat focus with more limited ranged combat. And a preference for ones where enemies took more than one hit.
Oh, okay.
So not necessary, right? Because there's a difference between like a belt scrolling run and gun and like one where you have to like hit enemies more than once, right?
Yeah.
But we ended up with a list of games, and I was like, Bovine actually put the list together for me, which is a big motivator for like why I did it in the first place, because I'm lazy, and actually putting the list together and being like, these are the beat 'em up games. That part was a bridge too far. But given the list, I'll spend 4 streams going through every game and playing them.
Yeah, why not?
Very narrow kind of laziness. But so we went through, and it was weird because I saw a bunch of games that I'd never seen before.
And found some new gems, maybe?
Very good.
Oh, well, that's good. That's good. You found some new gems then?
Yeah. And it was a super popular stream series. People really enjoyed coming to like look at the games, see new games that they might not have seen before, and hear a well-reasoned, like, not empirical, but like a well-reasoned rating for the game in a bunch of different categories, and why the different categories are weighted certain ways, and like how that produced a final overall score for each game. And that worked out really, really well. It was a very popular
Sounds like a great series. Yeah.
A lot of people like that, and it's interesting to see that kind of stuff. The second takeaway from it was, if you make a stupid joke like big bum up Friday, people will go, "Oh, it's your birthday? Happy birthday." And you'll get like an extra 20% of viewers because they think it's your birthday.
Oh, I'm gonna put bidet in my stream titles from now on. Then that's a great idea.
but like for 4 weeks in a row, the same people came in and said happy birthday.
So they're either joking with you, knowing that's not your birthday, or they have really bad memory.
But
sounds like a good time though. Generally speaking, like just playing some beat 'em ups.
I pinned the document somewhere. There's let me link it.
Thanks for the happy birthday there, Stickster.
That should be it.
Alrighty. I'll pull that up.
So.
Oh, here's your reviews on each of the games here. Okay.
Yeah. It's the whole list and like the scores and stuff.
Like you've got an overall calculated column there too. Very good.
And so the end result was the Super Nintendo has more games that are rated 7.5 and above. It has more games overall, a higher average for game ratings, but the Genesis has the single highest rated game.
Wow. Wow, okay. What's the single highest rated game? I gotta look.
Streets of Rage 2. Which is a game I don't care for, but I can't deny its quality. It's a really, really well put together game.
Wait, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Hyperstone Heist is an 8.4. That's pretty high score.
Hyperstone Heist is a really good game. Well, the Genesis one, I think, is the better of the two, if I remember correctly.
Right.
It's just put together really well. It's got a really satisfying, like hit reactions and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Very good.
I can't see any
locomotion.
Oh wait, you've broken out the Sega CD, Mega CD as well. So nothing breaking an 8 in this category though.
There's not much on the Sega CD, Mega CD. It's like Prime and a version of Final Fight that's not as good as the Super Nintendo one and something else.
Just quickly scrolling through, it looks like there's nothing that breaks the 9 in overall except for Streets of Rage 2.
On the Genesis, that's probably correct.
Even on the NES, Super Nintendo, Super Famicom.
On the Super Nintendo, I think...
I don't see a 9 here.
I thought there was a 9 on the Super Nintendo. Let me double check.
I could, I don't know if I can swap the sheet, but I can control F, I guess. There's no 9 dot in this sheet.
What did, what's it called?
Yeah, there's only Streets of Rage 2, and that's only 9.031. So, you know, it's if that's the highest rated overall.
Oh, it's 8.5. Shin Neketsu Koha is 8.5.
Yeah, okay. There's a couple of 8.5s here.
That's one of the highest rated ones. Dragon View is an 8.8, which is one of the other highest rated ones.
Oh, 8.8 is pretty high, yeah. There you go.
Dragon View is almost cheating though because it's a beat 'em up RPG and it's one of the few that exist.
And
it's really, really good.
I gotta be honest, like I expected the beat 'em up list to be more than 52 for the SNES and Famicom. I guess 51 items in that list.
Yeah, 51 games in total. Some games got eliminated for not being belt scrolling.
Okay.
Bebe's Kids is the worst. And then the Double Dragon games on Genesis are all really bad.
It's funny because Double Dragon's the one that I knew when I was a kid, and I didn't really love beat 'em ups because of that, I think.
So Double Dragon is generally fine. The Genesis ports of all three of the Double Dragon games are all fucked up. They're so fucked up.
Yeah, okay.
They're just this mess. Like total technical failure.
Yeah.
It's just wild.
I mean, you've given them play control a score of 2.
Yep.
Technical score of no greater than 5, it looks like. It's basically basically terrible games. Fun, 2. Yep. Very low scoring.
The Tick is also really bad. The Tick is also really bad on both platforms.
I mean, the Tick is like demonstrably better though, like apparently. It's good because you got an average rating of 3.6 on that one. What's Double Dragon? Like 3. Oh, actually no, Double Dragon 3 you've listed as 4.0 here. So
Double Dragon 1. Okay.
I'm ready.
Take an NTSC game, port it to PAL without making any changes, then port it back to NTSC and speed adjust it. Double Dragon on the Genesis.
I'm actually trying. I'm still trying to work out how that works. Sorry. So you're going from NTSC
to PAL.
So it's getting like
changing anything.
Slightly. It's actually slightly speeding up.
No,
slowing down.
Happening to the speed.
Nothing happens. Okay.
When you play it in PAL, it plays slower than normal.
Right. So slowed down on the PAL.
When you port it back to NTSC, you speed correct it as if you're porting a PAL game to NTSC, so it speeds up even more. It runs unplayably fast, and like there's no sound like the sound effects are so weak they're like hardly there. Most of the enemies and the hit detection is just completely broken. It's unbelievably messed up.
It doesn't sound good.
And
yeah,
it's unlicensed, right?
Wait, they didn't license Double Dragon for the port?
It's an unlicensed game in that Sega didn't approve it, which isn't like a lot of EA games were not Sega licensed, right? So it's not like that big a deal, but it does mean that like there wasn't a whole lot of quality control to speak of.
Yeah,
it looks worse in a lot of ways than like NES Double Dragon, which is pretty impressive because they took the arcade pixel art and then like didn't adjust it properly for the console's limitations.
So they kind of just screwed it up somehow.
All messed up. Yeah. It's like they started with a game that wasn't like Double Dragon isn't that great. Right? Double Dragon isn't that great to begin with, and then it's a fucked up port of a game that's not that great to begin with.
Yeah.
Double Dragon gets a lot of credit as only the arcade version because it was early and it was, first.
Yeah.
So
I mean that's where I knew it from, but I only ever really played the Mega Drive version of it, and I didn't really like it. Golden Axe was the other one that I played a bit back then, and that was great. I loved that. The Golden Axe Mega Drive was good.
Did you play the Mega Drive version of Double Dragon on PAL?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I played everything on PAL, so yeah.
So imagine that, but 20% faster. It's not fun.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, like, yeah, it's been a while, but yeah, for a long time I was like, I don't know, beat 'em ups. It seemed to be really my cup of tea. But I didn't really get a good sampling of them, I guess.
If you want to know whether beat 'em ups are your cup of tea, you and I should play through Dungeons and Dragons Tower of Doom and Dungeons of Dragons Shadow over Mystara.
Yeah, I'd love to. I would love to try that. We have to see if we can get it working.
They're incredible games. Again, they're like pseudo RPG where you have like inventory and stats and Guardian Heroes is another really good one. Guardian Heroes is weird though because it's like it's lane based, not belt scrolling. So it's a little harder to get into. There was where is it? Shonen Ninja Kasuke on Super Nintendo was basically medieval ninja River City Ransom.
Oh wow. Okay.
Which like you've got the store, you've got the power-ups, you've got the like free roaming stuff. Really, really good game. And I had never heard of it. I'd never even seen it before.
I mean, it's awesome that you got to find these titles that you'd never played before through this like exploration. I've tried to do some explorations of like DOS games a few times where it does tend to get a little bit tedious though when like you don't really know what you're getting yourself into until you play some of these games. You've only seen like one screenshot, and you're like, oh, okay. Some of them kind of suck.
I think one of the things that I've learned over time with doing exploration streams is that investing more effort up front produces better content and gives you a better it gives you a better experience of the games that you're gonna like get into. So for example, right, for 3 years now I've been working on going through the Japanese PlayStation library of games that are not visual novels, dating simulators, parlor games, and boring sports.
Now, parlor games includes like the slot machine simulators as well, right?
Yeah, so like mahjong, pachinko, shogi, checkers.
Still, that's a pretty huge library. The PlayStation had a huge library.
It's gigantic, man.
And even if you cut out all that, there's still tons and tons of games to play. Are you genuinely just going to go through and a spreadsheet of those?
A good metric that I found was that like if a game doesn't have an English release and is Japan only, it's a candidate, and that eliminates a lot because a lot of games got ported over.
Right.
So,
I forgot you qualified it with unported. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and so like it's a tab separated Excel file. Never mind. But I recently put together a like preliminary list of those games that qualify. It's on my Discord server and game list. But it's like I said, it's a tab separated.
Yeah.
But it ended up being not too bad, but I have some backfill to do on the spreadsheet side of things. But I ended up noting down those games that were particularly interesting. But again, it's taken me 3 years to get through this project, and I'm just on T? Letter T?
Jeez. When did you start the project again? What you said 3 years. So you started 2020?
Mid 2020, yeah.
Jeez. And you're up to T.
I had to take a hiatus. I had to take a hiatus for a while because of both, the cross-country move.
Yeah.
And secondly, because for a while my PlayStation PSIO was broken.
Oh no. That'll prevent some gaming, yeah.
I traded the PSIO in to a shop to get a credit towards the Game Boy Color flash cart because it was such a disaster.
Right.
The X Station is just a million times better in every way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the PSIO.
PSIO. Oh well. We've
but
yeah, go on. Keep going. Sorry. Keep talking.
But the X Station is just better in every way. It's more compatible. It's more usable. It's more user friendly in terms of how you have to prepare content for it.
Right.
Just better all around. And now that I've done a pre-calculated list and I don't have to do. I used to do like, I'm going to do a PlayStation stream next week. I got to spend like 6 hours going through PSX Data Center and like clicking on each game and being like, oh nope, that one's a visual novel. A Blood Factory, that game sounds cool. Wait, no, that's just Reloaded.
Oh man, I can imagine like, so one of the things that's like interesting to do is to like just look at the titles of games and try and predict what the genre is without looking at any screenshots, and then just like you go look at it and you're like, oh no, that's definitely just like a hentai game or something. Like it's It's a weird experience sometimes. The titles sounding like, oh, this is definitely going to be a cool RPG. I've never heard of this one. And you look at it, it's like, yep, visual novel. Okay. Not quite the same.
So I had this really funny experience, right? So I remember pretty clearly the first few streams I did of this PlayStation library exploration thing.
Right. Yeah.
And a couple of the like kind of salient mistakes that I made in terms of my selection, my tendency for title selection.
Mm-hmm.
And so let me get you some links. Let me get you some links. So
Hyperlinks or Atari links?
Oh.
Hey, it's getting late here. I'm allowed to make dumb jokes now.
Getting early here.
Yeah.
I'll just throw these in chat. But
sounds good.
Just a
Just waiting for those links. Just gonna. All right.
there's a problem here, which is like naming convention between
Okay. Well, while you do that, I will do a little shout out for you again. I'm having a chat with Duke Donuts here today. We've been talking for about 7 hours, I think, so far. Duke streams on twitch.tv/Duke Donuts. If you haven't been there before, I recommend you go drop a follow. And we're talking about the PlayStation Library project, where Duke tries to play through the entirety of the non
find it now.
Translated, I guess, non-imported Japanese created games that are not visual novels or parlor games, which
games that didn't get European or North American releases.
Yeah.
So Japan or Asia exclusive and interesting genres is the easiest way to
interesting genres. Yes, that makes sense.
Yeah. So
thank you, Pi, for the happy birthday. It's 17 minutes ago. I didn't notice that.
I don't have a link to the other one. So one day I was watching Mr. Radon and he's like, I want to look at some Japanese Saturn games. And he's like, I'm just going to look at the titles and pick the stuff that looks cool. And so if you scroll down on that page, there should be a high resolution cover art.
I'm going to scroll until I see high resolution cover art. Front.
You can click through to, maybe. There it is. Now I see it, but I'm like seconds behind on what I see of the stream.
I clicked it and nothing seems to be happening. And now that I don't know.
Oh, is it not?
The site seems to have frozen up a little bit. There we go. Okay.
Oh. Yeah, sick looking game, Blood Factory. And so Radon's like, oh, Blood Factory, that sounds cool.
It does look pretty
He loads
awesome.
it up and he's like, wait a minute. This is just loaded. This is just reloaded.
Yeah, it's right here on this advertisement.
A North American release.
Oh, it didn't work. But there was an advertisement there. It's just says loaded.
So he loads that up, and I'm like, he's like, oh man. He's like, all right, what's next? Dinosaur Island. That sounds good.
That sounds good.
He loads up Dinosaur Island.
Sounds fantastic.
And I was like, wait, Dinosaur Island. That's a dating game.
I actually didn't hear what you whispered.
It's a dating game.
Oh, okay.
It's I think it's a dating game.
Right.
It's the same gameplay style as Yumimi Mix, which is like a really famous. It's either a dating game or a visual novel. And so he's watching the intro. He's like, "Wow, this looks cool." And I'm like, I'm sitting there. I'm laughing to myself like an idiot, sitting here being like, he's hitting all the same games that
Oh
I
no.
like have previously seen, all the same exact mistakes, because those titles are all
Appealing titles.
they're super appealing titles.
Yeah.
And it was the funniest thing, because like I'm watching him, I'm like, look, I know you're doing your thing, but if you want some guidance, I'm happy to help. And he's like, no. I'll make my own mistakes. Don't worry about it. I was like, all right. But it's really funny to me, because like you always, like it's just this like almost universal thing that like, yep, that's one of them.
Yeah. I mean, you do get this a lot with game titles not necessarily representing what the game is about. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes
I
they're
mean, like, it does.
yeah.
It does, right? Like Dinosaur Island is about an island that's covered with dinosaurs, but
Yeah.
the story focuses on these anime girls that are there. Also.
Right. Yeah, it's like I mean, there's Jurassic Park, which that is what you imagine a dinosaur game would be like, somewhat.
Right.
Yeah, so I don't know. Sometimes you get misled by the title of a game. I remember there was like because I used to play on demo discs. I would get demo discs from covers of magazines or like off the shelf or whatever, and I'd take them home and play them. And I remember there was a few games that had like really interesting titles, but the games were like just terrible. And I can't remember any of the names right now off the top of my head, but I know there was a few that was like, oh, that sounds really cool, I'll try it out. And they would fool me time and again, because I'd forget that I'd tried it, like, in my fervor for finding a new game to play. I'd like put in all the discs and I'm like, oh, that sounds like cool. Oh, wait, that's right, it's that piece of crap game, and I'm not going to play that then. Yeah, happened a lot.
I had I would own there were games that I owned that I would forget were as shitty as they were. And then I would go back and play them again, like Legends of Valor.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen Legends of Valor?
Yeah. Legends of Valor, I'll pull it up.
What a disappointment.
It's I streamed it, I believe.
You didn't stream
briefly.
You didn't stream finishing it, but you
No,
played
no,
it, right?
no. I briefly streamed it. It was like one of those.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah.
I love that it like early in the game they give you this like giant paper doll, and you kit your dude out with armor and a weapon, and then literally does not matter. You never see that screen again in the entire playthrough.
You get this giant character creator and you never get to see anything.
Yeah.
I mean, like, actually looking at the screenshots, I don't look that bad.
I mean, the problem with the game wasn't like, it didn't look particularly bad.
Yeah.
It was just like unplayable, and like it consisted entirely of this one city, and you never left the city. And it was like really, it was like,
when are we going to leave? Like, never, right? When are we going to do the next interesting thing? Never.
Right. And it was also out like a year after Ultima Underworld.
Do you think it was a rush just to get something to market that was like competitive with it, or?
I think that SSI at that point was just scrambling to try to get anything out there that would get them something, because they were losing the D&D. They were like on the cusp of losing the D&D license.
Yeah,
they were like making a lot of missteps. They got Spelljammer. They got Legends of Valor out around that time. Like, it was a real mess.
Big mess. Yeah, I mean, old SSI. I mean, well, they're gone. I guess they're gone now. They didn't transform, did they? Yeah.
Looks like Ubisoft acquired them and retired the name.
That makes sense. Yeah, this is as good as dead then.
Effectively, yeah. But let's see. Okay, SSI's 1992-1993 lineup.
Any good games?
Why? Let me tell you about the games. I'm going to skip the war games because I don't know.
I was going to say some of the war games that they released in that period were good, like the something general games, like Allied General, Panzer General, Star General, Fantasy General. Yeah. Those are all fairly decent from memory.
So let me read the 1992 games. I'm not going to read the war games because I can't comment on their quality. 1992, Buck Rogers Matrix Cubed, Cyber Empires, Dark Queen of Krynn, Eye of the Beholder 3, Prophecy of the Shadow, Spelljammer Pirates of Realm Space, The Summoning, and Treasures of the Savage Frontier.
So, of those games, Matrix Cubed, you've played that, right?
Yep.
Did you like it?
Nope.
Okay.
Matrix Cubed starts off being like, okay, maybe this is all right, the Buck Rogers thing. It's a step down in every way from Countdown to Doomsday.
Right.
Countdown to Doomsday suffered from the problems that like early 90s SSI Gold Box games did, which was giant swaths of empty map just there to distract you, and like 3 encounters in this whole giant thing because they just weren't writing anything. They were just like putting empty map there to keep you busy.
And making it harder to find your actual destination. Like, that's about it.
and like Countdown was okay. Countdown had like the ship. The ship was really dense with stuff. There was a couple of spots in Countdown that were really good. But then by the time you get to the end of Countdown, you're in the like Mariposa station, and it's like, find these 3 coins on 6 levels of emptiness with a time limit.
Oh no. Yeah. All right. Yeah, so their 92 lineup, not great, basically, is what you're saying.
Yep. And then we got 93. We get Dark Sun Shattered Lands, Dungeon Hack, Fantasy Empires, Stronghold, Unlimited Adventures, Veil of Darkness, Al-Qadim, The Genie's Curse.
There's some good titles here.
Genie's Curse was 94. So 93 was not too bad, but cut down a great deal.
Yeah.
In the 94, wait, hold on a second. How is Legends of Valor not on this list?
Didn't. Huh. I was about to say, didn't we just look at that? But we did, but it wasn't on that list. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. And then 94. What do we got in 94? Oh, 94. Al-Qadim, Archon Ultra, Cyclones, Dark Legions.
Cyclones good.
What?
Cyclones is good.
Cyclones is a great idea, but it's borderline unplayable.
It suffers from a lot of Raven Software's level design problems that didn't really go away for too long. They stuck with that concept of like, hey, let's hide the progression behind an impossible secret. They did that a lot. But I still liked the game. It's quite fun. It has one major flaw, which is it starts out so hard and the difficulty curve is like a slide. It just goes down.
Yeah.
Like, by the end of the game, you have like the most powerful weapons and none of the enemies scale to make that a problem. And so you're just like, I'm just going to blast everybody. It's going to be fine. No big deal.
I had the demo of Cyclones, and the problem that I had was that there was no proper speed to play it at that wasn't like too slow so you couldn't like control it, and like too fast so you couldn't react to stuff.
Right.
But also the fact that like, because that's one of those like, it's like Cyber Mage, right? Where you have independent movement and aiming.
Yeah.
And
you've got a cursor to aim, and you've got to like do some magic to like actually get yourself to turn around and stuff. Like you can move your cursor to the side of the screen to turn right or left, But
yeah,
you have to like. There's modes.
It was very difficult to actually like
yeah
figure out a way to interact with the game that allowed you to move and shoot and target effectively.
And
which is why like it's a very cool concept, but I view it as kind of borderline unplayable because it's like you have to invest so much in working around its control schemes.
Yes, you do.
And
I admit 100% you do have to work around it.
Actually getting to the cool part of the game takes a lot of work. But
yeah.
But again, right? Cool game. Dark Legions, another
okay.
Another what's that?
I said, "Oh, okay. Yeah, Dark Legions. I've that's a RTS style game, right?"
It's an Archon type game.
Okay.
Another Silicon Knights game. Hold on, every time I click on something, this list resets.
I know the box art for Dark Legions, but I'm just trying to remember what the gameplay looks like.
You move pieces on a grid-based board,
right?
And when two pieces occupy the same square, you have an action combat.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so it's not what I was thinking of, but yes.
Dark Sun, Wake of the Ravager, a famously broken game. Menzoberranzan.
I still haven't played it. Is it good?
Pretty broken.
Okay, broken. All right.
Menzoberranzan is a lot of potential that I think is squandered by a bad engine and some fairly some pretty bad scenario design.
Okay.
But it could have been really fun.
That sucks. It's always sucks when a game could have been.
Yeah. I get more mad at games that are like a lot of potential and just like failing to realize that potential than games that start out with nothing and do nothing with it than games that start out strong and then fail to do anything with it.
Yeah.
So
sometimes you play a game and you're like, I know what would fix this. Like I know what would make this like go from like the piece of like jank that it is to like an awesome game. And it's disappointing to know that.
It sucks when it's something like all you have to do is change this one thing. Change this one mechanic in this game is like 50% better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this one simple trick.
Here's an example of Menzoberranzan, right? At the very start of the game, they ask you to go put out a fire at a warehouse.
Okay.
You do this by getting a bucket and filling the bucket at a well and then using the bucket on the burning parts of the warehouse. They don't tell you where the warehouse is. They don't tell you where the well is. You can see about 10 feet in front of you, and you have to make 3 trips.
Damn.
To put the fire out enough.
Oh, wait, and this is in 94, right? This is like...
Yes.
This is a 94 game. Yep. I mean... You're competing with Elder Scrolls launched...
You're competing with Ultima Underworld, which was released 2 years prior.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, it's a cool concept, like the idea of like, yeah, you got to go put out the fire, but then they made it suck, and like they could have just made it
and the thing
sucky.
is that like they made that the first thing you do, right? They made that the first thing you do, and then the later part of the game is what I call a Drizzt game.
A Drizzt game? Is that because it has Drizzt Do'Urden in it or not?
It's because your characters don't matter at all anymore. It's a game about Drizzt.
Oh.
Hope you like being second fiddle to Drizzt, because that's what you're going to do.
Yeah, that sounds like a mistake. Welcome
to Drizzt Story. You're just visitors here.
Oh, man. I'm yet to play through it, but okay. I mean,
right,
I will.
and that
I will
happens
eventually.
with a lot of games.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. It's not a bad game through and through. It has some pretty good stuff in it,
Mm-hmm.
but it also has some pretty bad stuff in it, and you have to be very careful with it because some of the bad stuff in it is, oops, you dropped an item in the wrong place, and then you went through a section, and it was a one-way transition, and now you can't go back,
Hmm.
right? So you lost a plot item, and you're game over. Well, you're soft locked. You just don't know it yet. Walking Dead.
Yeah. It's funny. I
Sometimes
used to say
quest items
that's
don't
you just remind
spawn.
me. I always used to say Walking Dead when I was soft locked,
I love that term.
and I never used to say soft locked. Like I didn't really use that term, and then on Twitch I like use the term Walking Dead, and I'm like, oh, you mean soft locked? And I'm like, what? Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. I've now changed my parlance to just say soft locked, and I never say Walking Dead anymore.
I actually use them like slightly differently,
Yeah.
right? Like if you're stuck in a situation where the game is still operating, but you can't progress,
Mm-hmm.
soft locked. If you've made a mistake and the game is now unwinnable and you can't undo that mistake, but you can continue playing and progressing the game to some point in the future.
Oh, that's Walking Dead.
To me, that's Walking Dead. And then, of course, there's like the game.
So, I mean, like at the start of like, what is it? Space Quest 2 or something? There's like something hidden at your UFO, or at your spaceship that you crashed. And if you don't pick that up, you cannot finish the game. Like, you can't progress, and you can't get back to it. But you can make a lot of progression. People call that a soft lock, but in your parlance, it's actually a Walking Dead.
I would say that's Walking Dead, right?
Yeah.
Because you've passed a point of no return. You can still progress. You can still do stuff and like continue the game, but you can't win, right? And so
I think I get it.
You have to like there's no indication that you're Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Soft lock, there's usually like a pretty clear indication like, oh, I used the key on that and now I can't open the chest that has the thing I need.
Yeah.
Right? Like, oh, I used this thing and it broke, and the guy said, I guess I can't win the game now. That's soft lock, right? Because you're not in a state where you don't know what's going on.
Yeah. Like breaking your lockpick in not Elder Scrolls, in Betrayal at Krondor, and you just don't have any more like way to open the door that you need to progress or something like that. That's never happened to me, but running out of rope in Krondor is definitely a problem. I hate that.
Oh, there's like the part where you got to go across the pits in the sewer or whatever.
Yeah, if you don't have enough rope, then you get stuck. You can walk around as much as you like. You're never getting out.
But I used the other way around, right? I used to use the term soft lock to refer to when a game couldn't be operated, but the process was still running.
I would call that locked up or hard lock. I don't know if I'd say hard locked. I would say locked up.
But a hard lock is when you have like a zombie process and it's literally not operating, right? Like it gets to a point where like the music thread is dead, the control thread is dead, all like of that crashed. Stuff is like crash is like a hard lock and a crash is differentiated by whether like for example, right, if you hit a while condition that never exits, that's hard locked,
right?
If you hit something that causes an access violation, that's a crash,
right? Okay. But if the game is still like playing music, but it's no longer receiving inputs,
if it's like playing music and it's animating graphics and stuff. To me, that used to be a soft lock.
Yeah, interesting.
Because it's like the game is locked up. You can't proceed. You can't do anything with it, but it's still running all of its processes. It's still operating. You just can't interact with it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. we've gone down several rabbit holes now, and this is very good. We can pop back out by asking a question here from the chat about the new Atari VCS from Boy. I don't know how to pronounce this. Boyafria. I'm gonna say Boyafria. Atari just launched a new console compatible with old cartridges and controllers. Do you believe that this is a trend, or is it just the only one? Is this the only time it's going to happen? This is the first time they've done it with cartridge capability. They've done the flashback several times, which is back compatible with old controllers. I don't know if every flashback was the Atari flashback systems. I've got one flashback. I think it's a 3. And I can plug in old Atari stuff to it, and they work just well. They work just as well as the new ones that came with it. The new VCS. I don't know. What's your opinion? I have opinions on it, but I want to hear what you think.
That's not the 2020 or whatever VCS, is it?
It came out this year. They had them at PAX Australia, but nobody could touch it because it wasn't officially out yet.
That's a newer one than the one I'm aware of.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
the one I remember is the one that was just a little Linux box. Right?
No, it's like a 2600 console. Looks like a 2600 console. It's got all the little switches on it. Not the 6-switch system. It's not quite as complex as that. Yeah, it's like a 2600. You can plug old cartridges into it and they work. Supposedly. I don't know how well they work. I haven't tried it, but yeah. I suspect it's all just emulation. I don't think they've done FPGA, although they may have.
Yeah, because the only one I'm aware of is the one that was under the... Yeah, here we go. Let's see.
I can bring up an article.
100 plus.
Excuse me.
But I think
yeah, 2600 plus I think is the name. Yeah, and it looks like an old Atari. It looks just like your Atari from the 80s or 70s.
I think yeah, it's just an SoC with...
That makes sense.
Yeah. eMMC, DDR3, and a DB9 connector. Interesting that they did the cartridge thing and the DB9 thing, but
I like what they've done. I think it's cool.
Who is it that was already doing that sort of thing?
Retron or something like that.
Retron. There's the Polymega thing.
Yeah.
There's been independent efforts to produce something kind of similar, which is basically just an emulator box.
Yeah.
With a cartridge slot.
Yeah.
So that you can plug your game in, because that's more socially acceptable than playing games off of ROMs, which I think it's the inverse. I think, piracy is a moral imperative, especially for older stuff where you're just feeding into some collector's pocket by buying cartridges off of them most of the time.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said for having the thing, because having the thing brings you enjoyment, right? That's a different set of criteria than you need to have the cartridge to play the game, right? And I think that if you're going to do something like this with a system like this, like if it's just going to be, if it's just going to be an emulation box, right?
Yeah.
Then just make it an emulation box.
Right.
If you're going to make something that's meant to be a replacement of, if it's going to meant to be an actual 2600, put the hardware in there. Like it's not that expensive, right? Like the 2600 is a dead simple system. It doesn't have any expensive components in it. Put a real 2600 in there, right?
Yeah, sure.
So like it's one of those things that it rests on this knife edge of like stuff I'm not super excited about, because it does something that I think would be better served going on either side of that divide.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, I get you. Like you go one direction and you're just like all in on emulation and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And or you go the other way and you're like, okay.
Like if it was a box and they're like, hey, it's preloaded with all the Atari games.
Yeah. I mean, they've done that a dozen times already. Like the flashback has been done so many times. It's kind of like, okay.
And then if you're not going to do that, put an actual 2600 in there.
Yeah. I think what this does that the flashback couldn't do is like third-party Atari cartridges, or like ones that they don't have license to put on the built-in. I mean, obviously that's solvable with like an SD card slot, obviously, but like being able to plug the cartridge into this and still play it is pretty cool. I don't know.
I think that a way that they could have handled that better is, like I said, right? Like somebody else can probably speak to this, but they have the right to do so. They have the information to do so. They could put an entire actual 2600 in there.
Oh yeah.
For super cheap.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Like you probably
and then it would support everything. It would support all of the peripherals. It would support all of the stuff. So
one-to-one like hardware that is a 2600 but a lot smaller would definitely be a way to go. I mean, yeah, I support the idea of this system. I'm not going to buy one. I already have a couple of Ataris that I don't really need something that does this. And if I wanted to emulate, then I will just emulate on my PC. So I don't really need this device. But that's not for me.
Right?
It's not really for me. It's not really for you. It's for a different market. But the question comes back to, do we believe that this is going to become a trend? Like, is Nintendo going to release something to take NES carts? Because like they didn't release the classic with all of the games. They only released it with a very limited set, right? Which
I don't think that official platform holders that have been in continuous control of their libraries for this long are going to do it that way. They're going to release limited sets of games that they unambiguously control the rights for in bespoke devices designed to play only those games, because more FOMO, more sales,
right,
and less availability means that they're going to sell out, and they can predict the exact profit margin that they're going to get off those devices. When you start including arbitrary games playing, now Nintendo is going to have to defend their position of being super duper anti-piracy when someone puts a flash card in one, right?
Yeah.
They're going to want to try to prevent people from putting flash cards in them. And that's not going to work very well with a lot of games that, run on flash cards, reproductions, other stuff that Nintendo doesn't want people to do.
Yeah, I mean, that's already happened, like the NES Classic, the SNES Classic, the PlayStation Mini, whatever it's called. Like, all of those have been, like, you can just install ROMs on those now and just play whatever you want. Which is a great experience for a user, but leaving money on the table for them.
But again, right? Nintendo can say these users are doing something wrong. We don't support this, right? It's a lot harder to say that about somebody putting a repro cart into their cart slot.
Yeah.
And Nintendo being like, this is an unsupported use case.
Yeah.
So what did you expect people to do with it, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it makes it harder for Nintendo to defend their own stance by opening it up like that, right? And so I think that's not going to happen from Nintendo. Will Sega do it? It's a lot harder to get M2 to port arbitrary cartridges to a system than to have them do ports of like 12 games.
Yeah.
So
I would support seeing modern reproduction consoles. I don't really care what's inside them. If I can plug a cartridge in and play them, and it's coming from an official Nintendo, like, I would support it. I'd be excited to see that. I don't need them for the most part. I have those systems, but
I think part of the thing for me is that, like, if a large company like Nintendo was doing something of this scale, it would be really cool to me. What I would want to see them put the effort into producing a new NES that was compatible with existing carts and maybe had additional features.
Yeah.
Because if you have all the plans and you have all the data and maybe you can get some cheap fab time, what you're like 6502 is going to cost you how much? Like nothing.
Yeah.
Right?
Like you have a little 6502 sitting on a modern CPU just as like a sub die on it or something, and then just like plug it in.
And all the mysteries of the PPU, you could redesign the PPU to output HDMI instead of compositor, instead of RGB.
Yeah.
And you could do the full fab for it, even if they're not sitting on top of the CPU or anything like that, right? It's like you've got an SoC and you've got like, here's this chip, here's this chip, here's this chip, and they're wired in this sequence. And now you've got an actual NES that does 100% compatibility.
Yeah.
It can play anything, and
that's all just sitting on the same system with like some other more powerful stuff, like, hey, internet connectivity, and now you can play Double Dragon together with somebody on the other side of the world.
Right. Yeah, that stuff would be cool, but I don't think they're going for that. What they're going for is like they're looking to exploit as much of the nostalgia factor for the common consumer as possible.
Yeah.
Right? It's
no, they're all about the money. They're not about making the best product, right? Like for a retro gamer market, that's not really their
Somebody posted this picture and they were like, "Hey, this looks like it's AI generated," right? And it was a painting of like joysticks,
right?
And they look all messed up. And I was like, I don't think it's AI generated. I think it's just an idiot producing this for like people who were jocks in the 80s and they're now like, gaming is popular. I want to seem cool. Let's put up a painting of some controllers for our kids. Believe me, I did a little bit more research. Let me find it.
I'm really excited to see this now. I want to know. I want to know more. I really know more right now. That sounds great. You're digging that up. Yeah, because I remember I've got a few posters and stuff. Like when I got the Atari Flashback, it came with a poster that has like a bunch of Atari games on it. You can't see it. It used to be behind me in the old location, but now it's like around the corner here. You can't quite see it. But yeah, and I have another one full of like DOS floppy disk Actually, I need to put that up too. Anyway, it's having like retro gaming stuff on posters or like things you hang on your wall, like I get that, that's a cool thing, but what you're describing sounds something a little different, a little bit more insane. Oh, you've got some links here, let's have a look at it. Let's load this one up. Wait, you can just buy these like out of like a furniture store? Is this a Walmart? I don't know what I'm looking at. I'm gonna grab a few more of these.
It's a Hobby Lobby exclusive.
Just 5 more minutes, Mom.
So I found
this looks so generic.
Yeah. But look at how messed up those controllers are.
I mean, that's almost an Xbox controller right there. It's like I can see it. No noobs. This means you. So, what does this button do again? What? Gaming's. Who puts this on their wall? I mean, some kid probably has on their wall and they like it. I'm good on them.
But like, look at the no noobs. Look at the controller of the no noobs kid. What is it?
It's supposed to be an Xbox controller, but I don't have one. Hang on, do I have one close by? I don't think I have one like right here.
It's so insane. Anyway,
I have to like look at one because like I'm trying to like, you can see there is a D-pad there, and there are buttons and there's the two thumb switches, but
right, the person who drew this never saw a video game. Like they saw a picture of a video game controller once.
Yeah. I mean, you could also argue they saw a child once as well.
But my point here is that who buys this? Who is this for? Right? It's for somebody who like never played a video game but thinks that they're cool now and wants to show how gamer they are by buying something from Open Road Brands at Hobby Lobby. And like it hurts my brain that it's such a like it's so far outside of my realm of experience why someone would go this far out of their way to buy something that they know nothing about.
Yeah.
In large enough quantities that this company continues to make them.
This strikes me as like my well-meaning aunt would buy this because she knows that I'm a gamer kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the other primary thing is like the clueless family member. And it's
okay, hang on a second. What the hell is going on here?
I think to a certain extent some of the stuff that Atari does and like some of these devices that are designed around this like it's not necessarily avid gamers who are going after a lot of these things, right?
Yeah.
They're targeting the outer orbit of a larger group of people who are aware of gaming and will buy the thing, right? To some extent, I think that's true.
Yeah. This one's particularly interesting because like I'm assuming like this joystick on the left, it looks basically like an Atari joystick.
Atari-esque.
Yeah, it's got an extra button. I suppose it could be another platform. It doesn't have to be Atari, but yeah. And then there's weird gamepad controller. I don't know what that's supposed to represent. It's too many buttons for a NES, but the wrong shape and design for basically any other system I can think of, so I don't know. And then there's this weird one down the bottom, which is just like a broken PlayStation knockoff controller that you give to like a 2-year-old. Maybe. It's like one of those what do they call them? VTech. It's one of those VTech controllers, but just broken.
Player 2 controller.
Yeah, the weird Mad Catz controller or something. Actually, Mad Catz sent me keyboard and mouse and stuff. Did you see that?
I don't think so.
Yeah, they sent me some stuff. I've shown it before on the stream. I did like a full review and everything. But like,
how was it?
the mouse was too lightweight, and the keyboard is actually pretty good. It's actually pretty good. Like, it's got a good weight to it. Feels like quite solid. Typing was nice. It was just the form factor wasn't something that I could use, especially because I do like the retro gaming. I need that. I need the number pad and stuff like that a lot of the time, and it didn't have it, so unusable for that. But otherwise, good.
You need 24 function keys.
Yeah. The desk mat actually had LED as well, which was good.
Oh.
LED lighting. It was nice and thick, actually. It was a decent desk mat. I don't remember if they sent anything else with that lot, but I was like, that's pretty good stuff. I could see myself using it. Man.
Kapow mentions the Nintendo calendars from like the turn of the 90s, where it's like one of them has these like 3D renders of Nintendo characters, and they are insane. Absolutely psychotic representation of Nintendo characters.
Mm-hmm.
It's so weird. Oh, I remember seeing those and like, holy hell. There's like one with like Donkey Kong, but he's all like, I can't even like call it to mind. It's so unsettling. Like Cthulhu.
I'm not sure if I'm looking at the right one, but it doesn't have many images.
I don't think that's the one.
This is 1991 Nintendo Power Game Calendar. There's a 93 one, which also looks a bit different. I don't think I've seen these before. These are new to me. '92. This is pretty jank looking, actually.
Oh, Power Game Calendar. I think this is it.
You found it? Okay, drop a link, because the ones I'm finding are they're unique, but not necessarily as bad as described.
Hold on, I don't want to link to fandom if I can avoid it.
Good idea, yeah.
Yeah, okay. It's the 1990 calendar is the one. Yeah, here we go. Reddit sucks too, but
I would really like an imager gallery. They tend to be pretty decent to scroll through. Oh, here we go. Nintendo Game Power 1990. Is that what we're looking for?
Yeah. Here.
I got the archive version.
Here's one important image.
All right, one important image. Wow. I'm actually like, that's kind of actually impressive. Wow. November. Look at that 3D model.
Yeah. 3D Metroid.
It's still pixel, like they've preserved some levels of pixelation.
It's so weird.
It's so weird. It's kind of cool, actually.
It's.
I want to play that game.
Here's what it is. It's like outsider art. Of someone who does 3D models.
Yeah, that's what it is. So here's the calendar, I guess.
Oh yeah. Look at that Mario.
Oh, they're unfortunately split across page. I'd have to download this to fully appreciate it. Yeah, let's take a look at this Mario here. That is a good janky Mario. Where did they get this from? Like, that's crazy.
I have no idea, but yeah, like 1990. There's another one too, I want to say, because there was one with, I think it was Donkey Kong, that was just like absolutely
man, look at this Link with the skeleton.
Yeah, the 3D
That
skeleton.
3D skeleton is amazing. I definitely want that 3D skeleton model. That would do very well on my stream.
I wish there was a way to like go back in time and preserve all
Assets.
the weird 3D models that got rendered off once and then probably deleted.
Yep.
I want those models.
There's no way the artist deleted this skeleton. This is such a good skeleton. This is still on somebody's backup somewhere. Guarantee it. This did not get deleted. Look at this thing. This is amazing.
You know what happened with it, Mike?
What happened?
They put it on a zip disk and then it got deleted.
They put it on a zip disk. It's perfectly preserved, but nobody knows how to get it from the zip disk.
Click.
That Donkey Kong is something else.
Oh yeah, there he is. There he is. You know what's okay, Mike? I got a good one for you. Tell me about games that you know of where the pixel size the size of a pixel isn't consistent and it makes the game look really weird.
I was literally talking about that in Gabriel Knight 3 like yesterday, I guess. And it's like a huge problem. Like when you go from like commercially produced games that were 2D in like, 97 or whatever, and then you go into that very early 3D, it's such a consistent problem. Like some games, they knew not to do that. Like if you look at like most of the texture alignment and stuff like that in like Quake 1, like the pixels are about the same size for everything that you see on the screen, so they blend really nicely together. But like you see other games like Gabriel Knight 3 that should have known better, but somehow they've got like these big blurry swaths of like texture next to like a highly detailed like high resolution thing, and it really is jarring. They should know better. Detail textures helped fix that in 3D, like having a detail texture they could apply, but it didn't come along quick enough for them. Let's take a look at this image you sent me. What game is this?
This is Dragon Wars on the X68000.
Wow. So like this is that problem. This is like exactly that problem with these characters being way higher resolution than anything else around them.
Yep.
It's like,
and then the UI being a third different resolution.
Yeah. Like the dots in these characters are not the same size as the dots over here from the look of it. That is something else. This is like a serious problem that like a lot of new indie games sort of don't really realize is a problem. They'll just like have their pixel art characters and just like, I don't know, it's pixel art, just throw it on the screen, you scale it, it's fine.
And they'll like the alignment of the pixel art characters to the background is not
they're like
pixel.
They're jittery and you can see like this weird flashing artifact around them because of the way they move across the pixels.
Even if there's no artifacts, they'll like smoothly move over the pixels of the background, so it's like
a classic problem.
Half and less. This is one of the earliest, I think, one of the earliest examples I have of this.
Of this artifact,
phenomenon.
I mean,
which is 91.
I'm sure there's probably others, but like 91 is probably about a time when you actually had computers with resolutions that could cause this problem more realistically.
Yeah, and part of it is because like the X68000, you know how we talk about things that are difficult to capture?
Sure. Is that
I
one
told
of them?
you about the X68000's capture problem?
No, I don't think you have.
It's arbitrary resolution, arbitrary refresh rate from 15 kilohertz to like 35 kilohertz horizontal, arbitrary resolution up to 1024 by 1024.
That's really high res. What year are we talking?
87, 89.
1024 by 1024 in 89, 87 era.
I
Full
could
color?
do it.
What kind of color are we talking? Like
256?
256. That's pretty impressive.
They didn't have enough memory to do that.
Right.
Like you couldn't. It could arbitrarily do it. 87, March 87. That's you only had a megabyte of memory in the original, right? So it could. You could do 1024 by 1 or 1 by 1024. It was just arbitrarily up to one of 10 up to 1024 in any of those directions.
Yeah.
And it supported low, medium, and high horizontal refresh rates.
Wow.
15, 24, and 31 kilohertz.
What magical monitor did this display on?
The like sharp CRTs.
Right, like just specifically built for this machine kind of thing, or
like multi-scan, tri-scan stuff. And arbitrary vertical refresh rate from like 40 something up to like over 70.
Wow. Okay. That's really impressive. Actually.
Fortunately.
So you can capture
What's that?
You can capture from this system?
Yeah. Fortunately, most game developers stuck to like 5 modes that were common with Capcom, Konami, and what was the other one? Probably one of the like PC98 porno developers. But because they would do high resolution, low color stuff ported from PC98 to it.
Right.
And then they would also do high color, low resolution stuff like arcade games that were typically like 384 or 256 in some dimension.
Yeah.
But it makes it a pain in the ass because you never know what the computer's actually going to try to do because it could do anything.
Right.
Within this like huge probability space.
When the game's running, it's not mode switching, is it?
I mean, it could be, but they usually don't. Like
DOS games will do mode switching occasionally, but pretty stable most of the time.
Games will on X68000, if I recall correctly, games will sometimes do stuff like, for example, BattleTech on the X68000 has high res mode for mission like
briefing screens and
mission briefings, the mech loadout screen, the bar scene and stuff like that. But then when you get into combat, it's low res.
Yeah, okay. Wow.
They also like there's an English language there's a port of Draken on there that's got an English language version.
Okay.
For some reason.
Is it somehow more impressive than the other versions of Draken?
It has some different music.
That could be more impressive, yeah.
It has weird sounds when you talk to the merchant. Not the merchant, the drunk. When you talk to the drunk. It also might be balanced differently. It's hard to tell.
Right.
We know the DOS version's balanced differently than like the ST version, which is not at all helpful for anything.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Do you know they ported Castles too?
The Interplay game?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I did not know that. I don't know much about the X68K actually. It's like
there are a bunch of like incomprehensible Western games that got ported and translated. It got ported to the X68000 and translated to Japanese. It's
strange.
Sometimes I'll come across a game and I'll be like, that can't possibly be this game. Yep, sure enough, there it is.
Okay. Yeah, all right. That's fascinating.
Like the BattleTech game is it's Mech Warrior.
The first Mech Warrior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The 3D one.
Yeah. Not 3D. Mech Warrior 2, which is the one that most people are familiar with.
Dragon Strike got a port, which includes high-resolution cutscene art.
Ooh.
Reproductions of all the art from the DOS game.
Right. That's pretty cool. That would be worth seeing, I think. Dragon Strike in
the only problem is that Dragon Strike on the X68000 runs like absolute shit.
Oh no.
It's like seconds per frame. It's so slow.
I was gonna say it'd be cool to see it in like higher resolutions and more detail, but okay, it's worse. It's worse. All right.
Although to be fair, if you're like a millionaire and you have a 16 system or something, that extra 6 megahertz will get you.
Yeah.
That'll get you a lot of performance. I have the old 10 megahertz Pro.
Okay.
Which like a 10 megahertz 68,000 is not very good at running DOS ports.
So you need that extra power.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think I'm getting too tired to do too many more segments, so this might be the last segment.
Sure.
If there's any more questions from the chat, feel free to drop them in now, please. Otherwise, we'll be winding up very soon. Thank you again, Duke. We didn't talk about everything I wanted to talk about yet, so we're gonna have to do another one sometime.
What do you want to talk about?
I would be nice to talk about game dev stuff, some of your game dev history, which I thought we would get to eventually, but we've just been talking about all this other stuff, which is great. It's been a good chat.
It's like I said, man, like you bring me on a show to talk, I'll talk forever.
Yeah. And I've had a great chat, actually. It's been a good time.
Yeah, it's been really fun.
Yeah.
Really
I'm looking forward to doing another one sometime.
Yeah, definitely.
And we have talked about a different format of podcasts, doing something a little bit more like focused and talking about particular subjects and stuff before, so who knows, maybe that'll actually come together someday.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting to do a kind of do a more structured podcast with a very like specific agenda of we're going to talk about this topic, we're going to cover these elements of it, we're going to talk about this question and answer segment, then we're going to talk about this, and we're going to cover these
something
things.
a little bit more structured would be great. Yeah. And maybe like a panel of people, like a few more voices to be heard, and give our voices a little bit of a break between that kind of thing as well. So
you need all that honey for?
Yeah. But no, I had a great time. Looks like there is no further questions rolling in from the chat, which is fine.
Chat, you couldn't see this during the breaks when we were on the BRB screen. Mike's just there like guzzling honey.
Just chugging honey. Yeah. I wish. I don't have that much honey. Actually, honey is like one of those things, we get it in the house and the kids are just going to be like, oh, I'm having a honey sandwich every 5 minutes until it's all gone. Like, they love that stuff. It's funny.
Honey sandwich.
Yeah. Just honey on bread with butter. Bam.
That does sound pretty delicious, honestly.
Oh yeah, it is good. Honey's great. It's full, it's full of sugar.
You know what I wanted to cover too?
Oh yeah, there's more subjects.
The D-pad design stuff.
That would have been a good thing to talk about. We could have talked about...
Look, I have some examples right here.
We talked about this. Oh, you have an Xbox controller right in front of you. You could have held that up when we were looking at that poster.
Yeah.
I think I didn't close it. It's still here. Here it is.
There
like it's almost like an Xbox controller, right? Look at that thing.
Almost.
Yeah.
Almost. Except like
they kind of looked at one.
Yeah, they kind of remembered that it existed.
Yeah. All right, we have official numbers. The rig stream was 6 hours and 44 minutes. This one, I think we defeated that. Then there you go. We got the numbers in. But yeah, for those of you who are listening in the future, and I'm talking from the past. Well, I hope you had a great time listening. This is Duke Donuts. Once again, you can find Duke on twitch.tv/Duke Donuts. Also on YouTube, if you search for Duke Donuts, you'll find him there. Blue Sky, Duke Donuts, I guess, as well.
I think so.
Yeah. And Duke, do you have anything else you want to say before we go?
I'm gonna be when I wake up, I'm gonna be streaming later today. So if you want to check out Shining in the Darkness, you can come by for that.
Sounds good. I'm gonna be busy tomorrow when I wake up. We've got a family thing going on, so I won't be probably able to make it. But yes,
somewhere around here, I have my graph paper for mapping streams.
You're all ready to go for that then? Awesome.
Well, I mean, I'm gonna fall asleep for probably 10 hours now.
Good idea. Yeah, I will do my best to get more sleep in too. Thank you everybody so much for joining us for the podcast recording. It's always a little different. Sorry?
I said thank you for putting this together.
It's so fun. I love doing it. I love having a chat, and I can probably talk for as many hours as necessary. So we've definitely got more hours left to cover, I think, in the next segment. So whenever that's going to be, we'll have to come together and do another chat. I'm yet to have a repeat guest. But I think my first repeat guest will be Dr. CDCS to honor his first guest slot, and hopefully do a slightly better job of the podcast recording than I gave him the first time around. So the struggle will be keeping him awake.
Doc,
yes.
Speaking of Doc, Pulsar. We got to get Doc on board. We got to figure out a way to play Pulsar with 4 people or 5 people.
Yes, if we could do it, that's a great idea. Good suggestion. Thank you everybody for all the bits and resubs and follows during the stream. Really appreciate it. I won't be staying up later to follow all those things up, so I just want to say a big thank you to you all now. I really appreciate it. All the alerts are turned off. They'll be back on next stream if you want to come back and hang out. Subfest, I think tomorrow is the final day of Subfest. Actually, I think there might be 2 more days left of Subfest, but I will be streaming tomorrow, but probably not Monday night. But I look forward to catching you all next time. Thank you very much for hanging out with us, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye. Good night.
Thanks, everybody.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye, everybody.